Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this video, we're going to be reviewing the new Venom movie. Now you guys have probably heard by now that most people, especially critics, are saying that this movie is a giant turd. And you shouldn't trust critics, really, unless you actually know you can trust them, because a lot of critics can be paid for, and then even a lot of reviewers can be paid for in certain ways. So it's always best to decide who you're going to listen to when it comes to a review of anything, not just action figures or anything. No matter what it is, make sure you can actually trust the person who's talking to you. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you've already decided that you can trust me. Or maybe if you're new, you might want to check out one of my old videos or a few of them or any of the things I do, because I like to think I've established the fact that I cannot be bought and paid for. Whatever I tell you is going to be 100% honest and genuine. And for this movie, I can tell you it's kind of okay. It's not terrible, it's not especially good, but it does do some things really well and some things not so well. So it's kind of a balance somewhere in between. Now before we go on, I want to point out, I'm not going to spoil anything that wasn't already in the trailers and commercials and things. Mostly because there's nothing to spoil. This movie is about as straightforward as it can get. There's one thing, which is a post-credit thing, which I will talk about, but I'll talk about it at the very end of this video, so I'll let you know before I say it. Okay, so you can go ahead and watch this. Whether you've seen the movie or not, you won't be spoiled. So the first thing about this movie, what the heck is it? It's a Venom movie. It's the origin of Venom without Spider-Man. How does that work? Well, not as poorly as I thought. It worked out pretty well. I mean, as far as this movie being a self-contained thing, if you didn't know it was supposed to be a Spider-Man thing, you'd be like, okay, that's what it is. And it's fine. It's not bad in that regard. It's okay. So you don't have to worry about that. Would it have been better if they had established it as a Spider-Man thing right off the bat? Probably. But it's okay the way it is. So we'll leave it at that. Let's talk about the cast first. Let's get that out of the way, because the cast in this movie is awful. Not necessarily awful in the fact that they're bad at acting or they did a bad job. Awful in the fact that it doesn't matter at all who's in this movie. All of the side characters are relatively pointless. They don't really do much of anything. One of them's a completely archetypal bad guy. One of them is the girl who the good guy is longing for. That's about it. There's really no need for anything else. And honestly, they didn't really need to be there if not for a little bit of motivation here and there in the human form, so to speak, for the bad guy. Because obviously we already know Riot's in the movie. It's like one of the first trailers they showed was Riot. So obviously Riot's in the movie. And the human people, I mean, they drive the story a little bit, but they really could have been cast as anyone. Anyone at all could have played these roles. They didn't do a poor job. It just didn't matter at all. For the side characters. Now, for the main character, the only one we really need to talk about specifically, Tom Hardy. I really like Tom Hardy. I think he does a really good job of playing different types of characters, except for the one that he did in this movie. I didn't like it at all. It didn't work for me at all. I couldn't have cared less about the main character unless they made him actually unlikable. I was completely indifferent about him. It just didn't work. The accent that he was doing, I've seen him do lots of good accents. This one didn't work for me. It didn't feel like Eddie Brock in really any way at all. I know a lot of people really like Tom Hardy, so they're probably going to be like, yes, he's awesome and it was good. But I really liked him too. And just about even as Bane, even though it wasn't really Bane, you get the idea. I didn't like him in this. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll go ahead and mix this in here, because I don't want to say, it's kind of like acting. The voice for Venom, awesome. I really liked the voice acting they did for Venom. The things he said, I thought it was really good. I think they could have done a lot better with it in the storytelling sense, but overall it was really good. The storytelling thing is that he says things like, I know everything you know because I'm in your head. But then they still have, he still asks questions, and they don't have that complete symbiosis, for lack of a better word, mentally. So it's a little heavy-handed, I guess. It could definitely be better. But the voice itself was really cool, and the conversations were really cool. So I did like that part a lot. That was good. Let's talk about the writing a little bit. The writing in this movie is fine. The dialogue's okay. It was a little awkward. It felt like they were trying to be funny, and a couple of the times they were, but then it didn't really, it didn't fit the tone. It wasn't tonally consistent throughout the film. They did mix in a little bit of humor, which works, in some cases, but some of it wasn't really funny. It was just kind of more light, as opposed to some of it being relatively dark. It was like they didn't know what they wanted to do, or maybe they did and they just couldn't achieve it. It wasn't bad, don't get me wrong. We've seen bad with like Thor Ragnarok, where everybody's dying and it's like the darkest thing yet so far, and everybody's cracking jokes left and right. That was bad. This isn't like that. This is more just kind of confused and heavy-handed and just kind of weird. I don't know how else to describe it. It was very strange. If you see it, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, pay attention and maybe you'll understand what I'm talking about. I don't know how to describe it. It was really just strange. I'll just leave it at that. The one thing that's really bad about the writing, though, is the pacing. At least for me, I thought the pacing was absolutely awful. I would argue that it's objectively a problem, but maybe it was just me. Maybe if I watched it again, I wouldn't have the same issue, so I can't say for sure. But as of right now, I'm claiming that it was terrible. The first almost half of the movie, at least a good 45 minutes, was boring, incredibly boring. And it didn't really serve any purpose. It was a whole lot of exposition that really made no difference at all. It didn't make us like any characters anymore or less. We already had, like, the characters are the most archetypal characters there are. So it didn't make a difference. And there wasn't really any exposition that mattered. There was a whole lot of people saying stuff and doing stuff, but ultimately it had no real impact on anything. It was stuff, even the most basic knowledge of this character, which if you're seeing the movie, you already got the idea from the trailer, you would have already known it. So it didn't serve any purpose. So they wasted 45 minutes doing almost nothing for the movie. There was no benefit to it other than establishing the names of the various characters so we knew when they showed up later who they were. That didn't take 45 minutes, or at least it shouldn't have. But it did. So the pacing was terrible. Terrible. Once the stuff started happening, once there was some action and some it's not even a climax, because I'll get to that in a minute too, but once the action started happening, it was pretty good. It was pretty consistent, and it felt like a comic book movie, but the first 45, no good. Okay, so as far as the action goes, we have 3 main sequences, really. Okay, and that's not bad, that's fine, except there weren't really any little sequences. There was like one little sequence, but kind of tied right into the first sequence, which is the chase scene, which we saw in, I think, the first trailer. And it's fine. It's a good chase scene. It's not a problem. The little fight that leads up to it's pretty good, but it's really early on, so it doesn't really, early on in terms of the development of Venom himself. So it doesn't really do much. It was more of an introductory scene, and then we have the chase scene, which was a good chase scene. They did some cool things, a couple really cool things, but then kind of a lot of stuff that was a lot of the same. It felt to me like the chase scene went on for a little bit too long and it didn't wow. The couple things that were really cool, I think, were not necessarily the ones that they were intending to be really cool. Like lots of Venom doing Venom-y stuff, and it was fine, but it didn't flow as well. It was like a kind of boring chase scene, I thought, after a while anyway. It started off kind of cool and a few things were cool, but then it was like, he pushed another car away. He pushed another car away. Like it was just kind of, it was okay. The chasing was okay, but the other 2 scenes, there's one really good scene, which kind of comes in the middle. Then there's one, which is the big scene at the end, and I'm not going to go into any specifics, but the middle one far outweighs the other one. The middle one was way cooler. The last one, the main scene, the main action sequence, which is Venom fighting Riot, because we already knew that was the case, so it's not a spoiler, you can't get mad at me. They already showed it in the trailer. That was about it. It was like the most anticlimactic fight between the main villain and the main good guy. It was relatively disappointing at the end. It wasn't bad. It wasn't like I was upset, but I was like, oh, okay. That's what I said in my head as I was watching it. It was like, okay, that's fine. But the other scene, I was like, all right, I like this. It happened too early in the movie. You want to build up to it and then have the main climax, and then, it falls off at the end. This was built up in the middle, and then there was action, and then it ended. So it was kind of weird. Again, kind of weird. I think that's mostly the gist of this movie, is a lot of the individual pieces, they kind of were weird. They didn't quite fit the way they wanted to fit or the way they should have fit. It's just kind of weird. All right, so we had to talk about the special effects because this is a CGI-heavy movie once it becomes CGI-heavy. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of people walking around and talking. But the CGI, I thought was really good. I didn't have any problem with Venom at all. I thought he looked cool. I do still maintain that the eyes could have been better, overall, but in the midst of the movie, most of the time it looks good. The little skinny eyes are kind of just when he's squinting or angry kind of, so it doesn't look as weird as we thought it was going to based on that first trailer. Overall, it balances out, and I think it's a pretty good look. Is it as good as the white logo in solid black and the bigger eyes? No, but it's still a good look, and I don't have a problem with it, and it looked good. Technically, the CGI was really, really good. There was one bit at the end in the main fight where it was really muddy. I don't know if it was just the design because there was way too much stuff going on and you couldn't really tell what was happening, or if it was the graphics weren't good enough. I'm not sure, but it was a little muddy there. But the rest of it was really good, considerably better than I thought it was going to be. So special effects were really good. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about before we get to the wrap up is, was it any fun? Mostly. It was. I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the first 45 minutes. I was getting kind of bored, and I'm not that kind of person. Like, I don't mind a movie that doesn't have any action at all, but it has to be good, and this wasn't. The first 45 was a waste, but from there on, it wasn't perfect, but it was a lot of fun. I think most people that aren't critics are going to like it. I think they're going to enjoy it for the most part. So it's pretty fun. So now we can wrap it up. Should you go see it? I think so. If you're a comic book fan at all, or if you like sci-fi stuff at all, if you just like cool action scenes at all, go see it. You're not going to be thoroughly impressed. You're not going to absolutely love the movie. Probably. You might. But you're not going to hate it. I think if anybody's saying it's terrible or that they hate it or anything like that, I think they probably have some kind of prejudice or predetermined dislike for it. They wanted it to not be good, or they wanted to not like it. I can't see anybody going into it and absolutely hating it. I could see people feeling mediocre about it, and that's about how you probably will feel, leaning towards I enjoyed it. That's my 2 cents. Now, as far as the last thing, this is the one spoilery thing, the post-credit scene, which is the important one, not the silly other one. Carnage. They show us that we're gonna get Carnage in the next movie. That's fine. We all pretty much guessed that. However, Woody Harrelson doesn't fit the role. Maybe if he was a lot younger he would, but as it is, he doesn't fit the role, and they put a stupid wig on him to give him bright red hair. And it was stupid. It was laughably bad and very poorly handled. If they wanted to tease Carnage, they could have done it in a much better way. This was not the way to do it. This was not good. It was not a good way to end the film. I did not like it. I like the idea of Carnage. I don't like the way they're going with it so far. But we'll see. There's still plenty of time for it to be much better, much different than it was in this movie. So we'll see how it goes. So there it is, guys. Let me know what you thought about the movie if you already saw it. And if you haven't, go see it. Come back. Let us know in the comment section below. Don't post any spoilers without saying spoilers, and then leave some space and then post it if you're going to do it. Otherwise, let's talk. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you come back to the channel. I do have new videos up just about every single day. We talk about movies, TV shows, video games, action figures, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.